The recording button is on. This is May 25th, meeting of the Select Board of Bolton, Massachusetts. I'd like to let everybody know that we're having some technical difficulties with Zoom this evening. So if something freezes or it just takes us a long time to switch screens, please understand that we're trying to address it. So we'll just get on with the meeting. First up on our agenda is an event, request for event approval, request for Bikes Not Bombs, 36th Annual Bike-a-thon on Sunday, September 10, 2023. Is someone from Bikes Not Bombs here?
Hello.
Hi, want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing?
Yeah, so hello everyone, thank you for having me. My name is Mara. I'm a development associate at Bikes Not Bombs, and I'm one of the folks who's planning our Bike-a-thon, which is our 36th year holding the event. And it's going to be on September 10, as you mentioned, and it's an annual event where we host a number of different routes. And so it starts from Jamaica Plain, Massachusetts, where we're located, and folks can choose from a number of different routes going from 10 miles all the way to the 105-mile route that goes all the way out to Harvard and back. And so our route that's 105 miles goes through Bolton. And so we've got a number of riders already signed up for the event, and we're really looking forward to it.
Excellent. I understand that you've received the approval from the police chief for this.
Yes, sir.
Does anybody else have any questions about this event?
No, although I will just say I participated in the Bike-a-thon when I lived in JP. I did not do the 105-mile route. And I'm familiar with the organization and the good work you do. So thanks for being here.
That's really great to hear. We'd love to have you again.
All right, very good. Do I have a motion on the request for Bikes Not Bombs Bike-a-thon? You're muted.
Stan, you're muted.
Oh, sorry, Stan, you were muted, but I think you were trying to make the motion.
Sorry. I will make a request to approve the request for Bikes Not Bombs, the 36th annual Bike-a-thon on Sunday, September 10th, 2023.
And I will second that motion.
Okay, roll call. Stan?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
And I'm a yes also. So very good. I hope it's a very successful event for you.
Great. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much. Next up is a sign request from the Boy Scouts Mayflower Council to install a post and panel sign, conforming post and panel sign at 129 Hudson Road for the Adventure Day Camp in Camp Resolute. Is someone from the Boy Scouts here? I don't see anybody so far. We are a couple of minutes early. Should we go on to something else and then come back to this?
Sure.
Okay. Well, next up is the town administrator report.
Okay. First is my first cut, my draft, if you will, of FY24 goals, which are in your packet. I will note that goal number 7, I have a significant typo in it. It says obtain a cost estimate for engineering a rear egress from the Florence Sawyer campus and weak funding for the engineering of same. That's supposed to say seek funding of the information for the engineering of same. So spell check wouldn't have caught that because I spelled weak correctly, but I think the goal once translated is pretty clear. But going back up to the top, just continuing with the capital planning process as has worked, I think, quite well the past few years. Continue to present our recommendations for ARPA funded projects. Continue implementing the long range plan for town owned buildings. by next year, I should be able to present the long-range plan for the culvert repairs. And continue my ongoing work with advisory as necessary to assist with the 24 budget and support the master plan committee as needed. So that's my first cut at my goals for FY 24.
Any comments?
No, I think they're great goals. I think we have some select board goals down in our part of the business, and I think there are two things. One is the Keys Farm Moderator Way and the Century Mill road acceptance, and I think that's going to be a joint select board, town administrator, and planning board kind of goal, which we need to get resolved for the coming year.
Brian, do you have anything?
Most of my comments sort of dovetail with thoughts I had about our select board goals, but I'll just say, since it's relevant here, one of the things I wanted to talk with you both about was having a goal around, I guess I'll call it improving the volunteer experience. I don't know if improving is the right word, but basically making, we have a lot of really great volunteers in town, and I just want to think about ways to show how valuable they are. But I also appreciate that the town's staff has a huge role to play, and I'm mindful of not having burdens fall on them. And so I think there needs to be like really good communication with the town administrator and staff about how to make the relationship between volunteers and staff productive, respectful, and a benefit to the community. So I can say more about that when we get to our section of goal setting, but I did want to flag that as one where I think it would relate to the town administrator as well.
Yep.
Well, I have a couple of suggestions for people to consider. One is to develop and implement a written policy on what's a gift that the select board has to approve. Because over the past couple of years, it seems at times contradictory when we have to approve something as a gift versus when something just gets done and it doesn't go through the select board. I think the different town departments need some guidance on when, and it should be in writing, on when to refer a gift to the select board versus something that they can approve on their own. So that is one suggestion I would make, is to have develop a written policy on which gifts or what kind of gifts the select board has to, or what gifts are appropriate for the select board to have to approve.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Okay. The other, Brian, did you have a comment on that, or?
Actually, just a question. Are you suggesting that it be a goal for the town administrator to present us with options about what the content of that sort of policy?
Yeah, I think the select board would have to approve it ultimately.
Yep, but it would be a goal for Dawn.
Right.
Got it.
Right. The second thing I would like to consider is that the town administrator lay the groundwork for preparing an article for the next regular town meeting, not the special town meeting, the next annual town meeting, to fund a study of the space needs of the municipal government.
What does that mean?
Well, that we go hire a professional outside group to determine what kind of space requirements are appropriate for a community our size, particularly in terms of the town hall administrative requirements.
I think that's definitely a a very worthwhile goal, not that the others aren't. And in conjunction with that, we've had some discussions about wanting to evaluate space at the DPW and whether we have an opportunity or not at some point to potentially relocate the DPW or at least expand down there. So the town hall space is extremely important, but it's not limited to the town hall.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, I
Yes.
agree with that.
Yep,
So we'll come back and just and nail all this stuff down at the next meeting. Is that all right?
sounds good.
Okay,
I only have two other things that's not on the agenda for my report, but they're FYIs only, but they're very important. I wanted the board to, I wanted to read to the board, and I've already shared this with you, but I wanted to read to the board and have it on record in our minutes. An email that we received from Berlin Chief of Police Eric Shartner, dated May 22nd to Police Chief Warren Nelson. Dear Chief Nelson, on April 14th, 2023, the town of Berlin experienced a horrific call for a house explosion. Officer Molly Plant, whom was working by herself amongst the chaos of what was happening, was quickly aided by your department. Sergeant Tyler Forbes, Officer Madeline Dyke, and Officer Don Calderon. Their assistance at the scene, as well as diverting traffic, was beyond appreciated. While responding to the call myself, I was contacted by Sergeant Forbes, who was on scene and gave me a full update as to what was happening and what was needed for assets. Officer Molly Plant had a major role in saving a victim from the explosion, and it was comforting to know Sergeant Forbes and Officer Dyke were there for her to support her, to help with the logistics to manage at the scene, and Officer Calderon managed traffic issues. As a chief, it was comforting to know and beyond grateful. He's beyond grateful for their assistance, and as a resident of Bolton, I could not be prouder of the officers and their willingness to help during a crisis in a neighboring town. As small towns, we rely on each other to succeed, and this is an example of the true professionalism we have between our communities. Best regards, Eric Shartner, Chief of Police. And I just wanted to acknowledge those officers for a job well done, and also just wanted to comment on the type of relationship that we have with some of our neighboring towns and the collegiality and professionalism that we share, which I think is extremely important. So I just wanted to publicly read that so people are aware of it. And also one other thing, as you know, as we do annually, put up the banners for the Memorial Day, recognizing our veterans from the town who have served. Normally the DPW does it in not necessarily the easiest manner. This year, the Stowe DPW brought down a bucket truck, and we were able to utilize the bucket truck to put up the banners, which made it a lot more efficient and quite honestly a safer exercise for our employees. So I wanted to publicly thank the Stowe DPW and the town of Stowe for that type of cooperation. I just want to emphasize the importance of having good strong relationships with our peers in other communities. I think Bolton's come a long, long way in that regard, and I'm very, very happy that we've come that far.
no, it's excellent, both in terms of our ability to handle that amazing event in Berlin, and at a different extreme, just have the two town DPWs working together like that is very good for everybody.
Yep. No, this just emphasizes how great the folks that we have at the town hall and police and DPW and other departments are working very well with everyone else. We have a great crew of people, and the townsfolk don't necessarily know that on a day-to-day basis, but we have a great group of people. We have the best. And I'm proud to work with all those folks.
Yeah, I completely agree. And thanks for sharing that publicly, Don,
Yeah.
the letter from Chief Shartner.
Thank you very much. So that's all I have unless the board has any questions. And I do know that we have someone now from the Scouts regarding the signs.
Okay, well, thank you, Don. So let's go back to that portion of the agenda. We're going to discuss the sign requests from the Boy Scouts.
Yep, thank you. I apologize. I was told that this was going to be June 8th. And so, yeah, and so it's like, okay, so I get the call from Jenny going, oh my word, is that tonight? So I can honestly say to you, I don't have anything from the sign company as far as dimensions, only that I was asked to make sure that we measured 20 feet from the road, which we have done, and provided them with diagrams. Have they provided you folks with that information?
Yep.
Oh, good. So, so you know what the sign's going to look like. You know the dimensions of the sign and the location. Other than that, are there any questions that I can answer for you?
Yeah, it seems to me that the sign matches all of our requirements.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I
It's
can't
also-
wait to see them,
It's very snazzy looking.
isn't it? Yeah. I really like the design. We went through a couple of iterations, and we developed that Adventure Day Camp logo a few years ago. We are a Cub Scout camp, but we market outside of Cub Scouts. So we said, let's drop the Cub and let's just call it Adventure Day Camp. So one of our vendors came up with that logo.
Uh,
Yeah, looks good.
Yeah, as an FYI to the board, Concom approval is still pending. We're not anticipating any problems, but it hasn't been issued yet. So I would suggest you, if you do approve tonight, to make it conditional upon Concom approval.
Okay.
Why
is ComCon approval needed?
I believe because of the location my understanding is they need to weigh in on that one. And I believe generally speaking, it's required for all signs.
Interesting. I know,
Concom, well, okay, but I find that kind of,
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is going up on Scout property, so unless there's,
well, we've been working directly with Rebecca with regards to being able to clear overgrowth around the shore to provide, better view of, swimmers and boaters on the pond. I honestly don't think that she's even looked at the location of the sign. She's just been concentrating on being able to clear brush.
Yeah,
maybe it's in some kind of buffer zone or something like that.
yeah, well, I mean, I know where the sign's gonna go. I can't understand why Concom needs to chime in, but well, I guess we'll let them chime in, but
Well, generally speaking, though, to be fair to Concom, when a shovel goes in the ground, they usually weigh in, and then normally it's very pro forma, and you don't even see it because it doesn't. Most sign requests don't make it your way until you're the last step.
yeah, all right, well. Okay, well, I'll make a motion that we approve the Boy Scouts of America Mayflower Council to install a post and panel sign conforming at 129 Hudson Road for the Adventure Day Camp at Camp Resolute.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, roll call, Stan,
All right,
Brian,
Aye.
and I'm a yes also. All right, thank you. So thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you. And I'll have with the
Good luck with
person
camp
that's
this year.
the person who's working with her on the NOI for clearing the brush, I will have him contact her just to make sure that we're all on the same page on that as well.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Next up is select board business. Are there any public service announcements?
Yeah, I got a couple. One is, it's starting to be summer now. Couple things. Bottles and cans, and it's deposit. Bring it to the Boy Scout shed at the top of the transfer station. That's our main source of revenue. If you're doing any glass and bottles, rinse them out. It's summer, a lot of bees. I've seen half full jars of spaghetti sauce in those things. You gotta clean your stuff. So the other thing is, I wanted to say if individuals, and this is mainly directed to Bolton residents, if you have an issue with a policy or whatever is going on either at the transfer station or when you come into the town hall, and you might have an issue with either a policy or whatever relative to bags for the transfer station or whatever. If you have a problem, don't take it out on the individuals who are working at town hall. The folks at town hall are exceptional employees, and they work their asses off to do the best thing for the residents of Bolton. If you have a problem with anything, or policy or regulation, don't take it out on the staff. Contact either Don Lowe or one of us on the select board if you have an issue, but please do not take it out on the staff. We have had a number of incidents where people have come in and they feel that they have the right to berate the staff, and I will not accept that. Act professionally. If you have a problem, reach out to Don Lowe, reach out to the select board, and that's what I'm going to say right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, are there any future agenda items?
I think we need to have a discussion on what the impact of the school building project is relative to the tax rate. I think we need to do that at some point in time. I will have a couple of other agenda items as we go forward during the summer.
Okay. Ryan, do you have anything?
No, I think most of mine would be things that maybe emerge out of our select board goals discussion. So,
Okay. All right, we'll put that down as a future agenda item, Stan.
Thank you.
Next up is for the board to consider accepting the provisions of chapter 269 of the Acts of 2022 to provide a one-time additional 2% cost of living adjustment for Worcester Regional Retirement System retirees, retroactive to July 1st, 2022. Don, could you walk us through that, please?
This is a request that comes in from time to time, but I don't believe it's every year. I wanted to confirm that with Kristen today, and I just honestly forgot to do so. But it is for anybody who's in the Worcester retirement system, and we do have some retired employees in it. It would provide, as it says, a one-time cost of living adjustment of 2% to our retirees. This needs to be voted on by all the member towns.
Does it? Let's say Bolton votes in favor. Do Bolton employees get the cost of living increase even if all the other towns don't agree?
I don't believe so. I think it needs to be a majority of the system. I received a call from an area town earlier this week wanting to know if the board had voted it yet, and or what the timeline was. I said it was on the agenda for tonight. Theirs is coming up shortly, but they were trying to get a sense for the timing, but no, I don't believe, like, for example, if the vote were 16-1 in opposition, the one that votes in favor would not, their employees would not realize the benefit because it comes from the retirement system.
Well, how can we vote on this, given that this is outside the budget that we've approved?
It comes out of the pension system. It does not come out of our budget. It's an additional payout from the retirement system. It's
It'll
not a
be
budget
reflected
item
in the
for us.
next budget, but not this.
Oh,
one.
wait. But who's paying into this? It's us, isn't it?
It's the towns and it's the towns and the employees. They both pay.
Yeah, well, so my question still stands. How can we approve a cost of living adjustment outside of our budget, which we approved a couple of months ago?
All I can say is any other time this has come forward, and it's come forward multiple times, that hasn't been a concern and the board has approved it.
Well, it's a concern now,
Okay.
at least from my perspective. So where does this money come from if we have not approved it back in March and April for approval in May?
Perhaps we should just defer the discussion to the next meeting and I'll have an additional conversation with Kristen.
Yeah, I think it'd be great because it sounds like we're asking to give more money that we have not approved.
Go ahead,
I
Bob.
just wanted to make a comment, which was that I agree that it makes sense to defer this by maybe a meeting. And what I'm wondering is, I would think that probably the retirement system would have some sort of projection about how approval of this retroactive increase might affect next year's assessment. So I'd be interested if that's how it, because I agree with Stan, it probably, we can't like go back and change prior year's assessments, but maybe it would impact next year's or the year after. So it would be good to just
Yeah.
know what the magnitude of the effect is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
All right, I'll be happy to do that.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess the other interesting aspect of it is why aren't they asking this for next year? To Stan's point, if it's a budget issue, shouldn't they be asking for it?
I have to ask that question. I have no more information than I've already
Okay.
shared.
All right, let's come back to that at the next meeting. Next, we have the summation of an annual event in the life of the select board. And that is the annual performance review of the town administrator by the select board. The select board members all participate in the evaluation, and it's the honor and privilege of the chair of the board, who at that time was Stan Wysocki, to do the performance review and review it at tonight's meeting.
Yes, so thank you, Mr. Sikansky. Yes, Mr. Lowe and I, earlier this week or last week, we went through the annual review. I got your input, Mr. Sikansky, provided my input. I am happy to say that our town administrator, Don Lowe, received a perfect 5.0 relative to all of the various aspects that were outlined in the annual review from a wide variety of options and discussion points. From my perspective, Mr. Lowe has done a superlative job, not only this year, but for all the years that he has been with the town of Bolton. So I can't be more pleased with what Mr. Lowe has done for the town of Bolton since he's been here, lo these many years. And we look forward to squeezing him to get to do more for us for the future years that he is here. No, I gotta say, Don's done a great job, not only himself, but we have a fabulous, absolutely fabulous staff within not only the town hall, but DPW, the police department, and that is in large part to Don's management style, and the fact that he has done what he has done. We are the envy, and not many people know this, but we are the envy of many towns. And hearing the issues and the strife that goes on in many of the towns in the Commonwealth, we have a fabulous staff, and it is in large part due to Mr. Lowe's management style, inclusive style, and the fact that he does a great job. And I want to commend him and all of the town employees and the department heads. We have a great town, and a lot of people don't really know about this stuff, but we do. And I am just tickled pink to be now 19 years working with Don. So I congratulate Don, and thank you very much, Don, for doing a great job. We
Thank you.
greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just want to add that it was a pleasure to give Don the review that I did. He not only fulfilled expectations on all the things that we laid out as special issues last spring, but he performed the regular duties of the town administrator in an exemplary manner and dealt with multiple unusual situations, sometimes a couple of them simultaneously, with discretion and professionalism, and the results generally came out well. So I was very pleased to be able to give him such a good review. So
Yep.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, you know, I'm always very humbled by the reviews that I've gotten. Obviously, this one in particular is especially rewarding. But it's, you know, a manager, as I always say, is only as good as a staff. I truly am blessed with a wonderful staff.
Yep.
And you would have to be here for a day. Not that I'm inviting any of you to hang out for a day here, but you would have to be here for a day to observe what goes on with my office, and that starts with Jenny. She does a great job of managing me and keeping me focused, and sometimes saving me from myself. But I just can't say more about Jenny or, you know, the staff as a whole. So I thank you, and this is a reflection on the staff, not just me.
Yep.
All right, well, thanks once again.
Yep.
Next up is a initial discussion on goals for the select board for the coming year. Brian, I'm going to toss this to you. As the thought leader. You're the thought leader on this one.
So I had a suggestion on the process for this, and this was a suggestion. Gosh, I guess it was a couple weeks ago at Backyard Bolton when I ran into John Petrin, who I think Don Lowe knows is serves as a town administrator, but what I would propose is, I think it would be good for the select board to have a meeting. Obviously, it would be posted, but maybe not necessarily via Zoom, maybe in person. Maybe not on a Thursday, maybe some other day, a weekend or whatever, but just for an opportunity to get together in person and talk through what we think the goals ought to be. And some of it for me would be also just helpful background learning, but just not
Yeah.
via Zoom.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. I think it's
I'm
great.
fine with that, but
Yep.
not for purposes of discussion tonight, but to give me some idea of the scope and range of this. Do you have a couple of things you want to just throw out as possibilities? Again, not to make, just for me to kind of understand the scope and range.
Yeah, so some things I've been thinking about are like whether we want to have, and I don't want it to be too formal, but some idea of like who among us is going to be the primary liaison to different either departments or committees, or just have like maybe develop some subject matter expertise so that not all three of us are having to do it, but we can share. So that's one idea, like how we want to divide that up. Like I said earlier, I think having some goals around volunteer engagement, volunteer recognition, but also best practices around how you integrate volunteer with municipal systems. Because I will say, I think, I don't think it necessarily comes naturally to everybody to realize that when you're volunteering for municipality, there's certain like legal requirements that come along with that. And so it may be perceived as like red tape or bureaucracy or whatever, but I think those things are in place for a reason. But we sort of just need to get the volunteers and the staff more aligned on what the mutual expectations should be. And I think our board has a role in kind of setting those. And then I think I had said this at another meeting, but there are certain key decisions that the town will be making in both the short and long term. And I think we have a role in getting good information out to residents. And so maybe having a calendar in mind about when we want to be able to provide information on certain key things. So for example, the school building project is one obvious example, but I'm sure there are others coming up. I think also Stan mentioned Keys Farm, but those are the types of things. Does that make sense, Bob?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you very much. Stan, do you want to add anything? You're muted.
What Brian is saying makes perfect sense. I think we should have a sort of an in-person meeting and just hash out a bunch of ideas and stuff. And I think it'll go a long way to formulating what goals we might want to set for ourselves for next year.
Okay. We'll put that on the to-do list. Thank you.
Okay.
Next up is a discussion on permit fees for the Neshoba Regional High School building project. I'd like to initiate this discussion by explaining to my fellow board members that I've been at every high school building committee meeting because I'm a member. I've been reading all the documentation that's provided, and it was not until last week's meeting that I learned that there was a consideration to asking that the building permit fees for this project be excused. I do not want to leave anybody with the impression that I could see this coming down the pike and I didn't say something beforehand, because that was not the case. But what was presented last week, again for the first time, was a summary of the costs associated with the new high school, the latest estimates. They're still doing some fine tuning, but we're close to the end of that. And part of that was their permit fees were estimated for the building, which would be from Bolton. The permit fees were estimated to be $2,269,000. And then there was a line under there that said $2 million of that would be excused. And that was news to me. It's clearly something that the select board should be aware of and needs to discuss. So before we open it up to some other people to comment, I'd like to answer any questions about what I've told Stan and Brian so far, if you have any.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak if I may.
Sure. Mary Ann Williams is from Skanska. She's a member. She is the owner's project manager. Skanska is the owner's project manager on the school building project. And she's been a very good leader of all of our processes since Skanska has joined the project. Go ahead, Mary.
Okay, thank you. First thing I wanted to say is Mr. Gleason, Chair of the School Building Committee, extends his apologies that he was not able to make it this evening. He has a nephew that's graduating tonight and he was not able to attend. Also present here is Superintendent Downing. And I would just like to give some context to the comments, not to disagree, but to bring clarification. So during the process of reviewing the estimates and going through an estimate reconciliation, we had one of the estimators carry the value of a permit, a building permit, and another estimator not carrying that. So in essence, it became clear that there needed to be a conversation, a request. By no means, no assumption. I do have a document here where it was shared, and if anybody would like to look at this later, it's at 1 hour, 6 minutes in the school building committee meeting minutes. But we published a document that showed categorically all of the costs for those categories and the permit fee for $2,269,104. Below that was a category called possible deduct, which would be a request for a reduction of the permit fee. So to give some content and some context and some history here, we were also the owner's project manager on the Minuteman Regional School District project. And the 3 member towns are also members of the Minuteman Regional School District. And so I brought it to Mr. Lowe's attention and a reminder about how there was a bone of contention on the Minuteman project that was shared among school building committee and school committee members of excessive fees being charged. So the fees that were calculated in the estimates were based on the published fees. And fees are appropriate and they're there to cover the costs and expenses that the town would reasonably anticipate to incur. And permit fees for other schools are a fraction of the cost that was calculated at $2 million, $2.2 million. So I spoke to Superintendent Downing, asked him if we could set up a call because I saw this as a potential rabbit hole where, for example, the Minuteman 16-member districts were charged for a residential rate that was considered excessive given the costs incurred by the town. And it was somewhere around 5 times the town's annual budget for inspectional services that included a full-time building inspector. So the Minuteman District paid a total of $916,000 for a 258,000 square foot school for permit fees. And it was grossly disproportionate to and not all related to the actual costs that were incurred by the town. So although all reasonable fees should cover expenses, unreasonable fees, excessive fees were impermissible under Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 22F. And the district logged the time, the Minuteman District, spent by the town officials on site and assumed a rate based on the annual salary and then used a multiplier of 3. And it was calculated that the cost was somewhere around $119,000, even though the district raised this right at the beginning of the project. So what I was concerned about, out of my respect for everybody involved with this project, was that when we published, which we sent out in advance, the cost estimates, as well as this schematic design budget that showed what I just explained in terms of the categories, that the fee, the building permit fee was included, and then down below where it stated possible deduct, we sent it out on a Friday before the Wednesday evening meeting. So bringing it back to Mr. Lowe, we asked him if he made it very clear to us, he says, I do not have the authority to do this, but I will bring it to my board for discussion. So by no means, and I would apologize personally to Mr. Lowe for any misunderstanding about what might have taken place here. But my concern in supporting the town, the 3 towns, is the perception that there would be excessive fees charged by the town of Bolton for a project that supports 3 communities, and was concerned that this might be something that, given the information is public, would be perceived that that this was being treated like a tax or a profit center versus what the intent is under the law. So so I think I'll stop there to allow others to ask questions, but by no means did we say that the town was going to waive $2 million. We did a calculation that what we thought the cost would be for the project, and that by all means, we understand that the inspectors work 15 hours a week in terms of plumbing, electrical, and building inspectors. They're not full-time salary employees, and that we need to establish an appropriate fee to pay for those inspections, but that is something different from the building permit fee. So I'll stop there and certainly welcome any questions that folks may have.
Brian, Stan, any questions at this point?
I think I have at this point mainly a procedural question, which is when do we need to make a decision on this? Because this is really this is the first that I'm hearing about this, so I do have a lot of substantive questions, and I don't necessarily think we'll get through all of them tonight. But so the first question is, when do we need to decide?
Well, I can't speak to that schedule for you, but I know that we're submitting to the Mass School Building Authority on the 27th of June, that we will be looking to approve a budget in advance of that submission. We presented the budget last Wednesday, and it's not that we've had this information a long time. We've had this information for some time. So I don't know if folks are prepared to deliberate on this tonight, but certainly we would like to have this information, because when we submit it to the Mass School Building Authority, they do not participate in any reimbursement for permit fees. And so this would be a 100% burden to the 3 towns, this fee.
Okay. I had a couple more questions, but I don't want to go if Bob
No,
or
go ahead,
Stan
Brian.
had questions.
Go ahead.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly what I think I heard you say, Ms. Williams, and thank you for all the information. So when the $2.2 million fee estimate was generated, it was based on the published schedule of fees that Bolton has in place for any other building project. Is that right?
For residential, yes.
Okay. And so I guess one question I have is, if this were not a school building project, but a commercial project of a similar size, would there be, I just don't know enough about our fee structure, or would there be different fees in place, or would a commercial enterprise also be coming up with a $2.2 million number?
I think Mr. Lowe might be able to answer that question, because I can't speak to the specifics of your community, and hopefully I'm not misspeaking when I said a residential fee.
I'm not extremely familiar with the with any differentials between residential fees and commercial fees. We don't have a lot of commercial building in town, as you know. So I can't give a fully informed answer to that, because almost all the building that we see is residential. I can't tell you the last time there was a commercial building project in town. If I may, and if I'm oversimplifying this, please tell me, but it doesn't seem to me that the board has all the information they need to make a final decision tonight. And if the MSBA doesn't reimburse any amount of fees, and it's to be borne by the 3 towns, I'm not sure what the harm is including the full assumed $2 million in the budget now. And then if at some point in time when the board is better informed, decisions are made to go in a certain direction, then the money would just not be spent, even though it's budgeted. So, or it's budgeted as part of the project. So I'm not sure I fully understand why there's an urgency to make a decision tonight, because the budget is being voted next week.
I concur with you, Mr. Lowe, that I don't think it needs to be necessarily voted on tonight. It is already carried in the budget.
Mhm.
And it is our experience on school projects that it's interpreted that fees are waived because you're taking money in. You're paying, you're receiving money from the Mass School Building Authority. They see it as taking money from one pocket and putting it in the other. Certainly, it would be included in the financial calculation of the cost to the towns for the project. And if you want to carry that 2 million and have a little bit higher cost to all the towns, certainly that's your decision, not mine. I'm just trying to share with you what happens typically and is pretty standard on Mass School Building Authority projects, that certainly individual communities waive the building permit fee. They do have fees for inspections, for plumbing, electrical, et cetera, that those fees are cost and carried under the subcontractor costs. So it was more of just wanting to bring it to your attention that it could be a perception issue.
And I completely understand that, but being the small town that we are, as I explained in the one meeting that we had to kick this discussion off, our plumbing inspector and our electrical inspector work on monthly stipends. So there's going to be, obviously, an inordinate amount of inspections need to be done other than what's normal. So we would need to put for their inspection fees, and I understand it's different from a building permit fee. We would have to have an account set up that we could draw from for any and all inspections. But the building permit fee, dealing with specific functions that the building inspector will need to carry out. The building inspector is a 15-hour-a-week position here. So certainly there's going to be more of an impact on the building inspector. There are ways that could be dealt with that could make things more efficient. And not necessarily overly burden the building inspector, but that's all still TBD. So from a conservative point of view, I would see the value in, if the budget's being voted next week, leaving the expense in now, knowing that it's a possibility that figure might not, but could come down. I think we're much better off doing that than not putting it in the budget and then finding out that the budget is short. Because I can't sit here and advise the select board tonight on the impact on the building inspector because we haven't defined that yet. So that's my biggest concern about, and that's where building permit fees, a lot of that goes to, is the impact on the building inspector. And I can't determine that tonight.
Correct.
Well, Don, let me ask a question. I mean, we're talking about permitting fees, but are we commingling permitting fees with the actual fees that we would need to pay our building inspector to deal with the inspections?
No, they're two separate issues.
Okay, so what Mike and somebody else might have to do to look at the building is separate from this. We're talking about 2.2 or whatever it is $1 million just in permitting fees, not the actual inspection fees that our people would need to do relative to this project.
Right. Just to give one example, and I don't know that you want to go to this level of detail tonight, but as one example, and this is an example that Marianne and I did discuss, is, and if I don't use the right terminology, I apologize because it's not my area of expertise, but rather that somebody is going to have to review the building plans and comment on them. One option is for, in essence, a peer review to be done, maybe not the right term, but
Code review.
a code review. A third-party entity, a consultant, would do a code review of all the plans, write a report on that, and then that could be the basis of from which the building inspector performs certain functions. That's one way to do it. It's not necessarily the only way to do it. So it's certainly something to be considered and evaluated and discussed. But we had a very first conversation about this 2 weeks ago, and I was out all last week. So I mean, it's a discussion to be had if the board would like. But again, it's a good example of why I can't give you a definitive answer or suggestion as to what I think you should be doing. And in lieu of that, since the budget's being voted next week, it just seems to me the best thing to do is to carry the money, and then if some of it doesn't need to be spent because it's more than what we would be fair payment for services being rendered, is one way of looking at it, then I think that's fine. I just think running short is a greater risk.
Yes, and just one point of clarification here, that this is what they call an affidavit project, which means the engineers are supposed to be on site on a regular basis, making sure as well as having Skanska's full-time on-site presence as well to make sure that the construction conforms to the documents. But with regards to the building inspector, what we're talking about is that there's a code review of the drawings to make sure that the drawings conform to the code. And money for that has been accounted for in the budget to perform that code review, because having a building inspector 15 hours a week does not really allow sufficient time for them to do that. So that's been accounted for in the project. The inspections have been accounted for, and the suggestion of should this body decide that they want to do this, that the $2 million is an estimated amount where it still leaves $267,000, whatever, $269,000 available for those other activities. So no, you don't have to make a decision tonight. It was really, meant to be out of my concern about perception, given what happened with Minuteman, and that the three communities, including Bolton, were part of that experience.
Superintendent Downing?
Thank you, Chair Sikansky. And if I look different tonight, I've been banished to our Airstream this evening for this meeting. So I wanted to just add into Mr. Lowe's point. The school building committee chair at the school committee meeting last evening did present the project as the $241 million project. The $2 million consideration for permit fees is the consideration of the Bolton Select Board. And so to emphasize Mr. Lowe's point, this isn't a pressure conversation this evening, it's an educational conversation. And we can make the future adjustments as questions are answered around that as we get closer to the date of ultimately having a debt exclusion election.
Okay, thank you.
My understanding is that at the last school building committee meeting, that it was presented that Bolton was going to forego the $2 million. So so my understanding is that the presumption was that Bolton was going to do this before the Bolton selectmen were even consulted on this.
No, that's not the case. You can go to minute 106 of that meeting and see the presentation of that material.
Well, let me.
Well, wait. We're hearing about this after the fact.
Yeah.
So Mr. Downing, please tell me, you guys were considering foregoing Bolton for the $2 million in permitting fees, and this is the first time I've heard about this.
There is a news article
No.
in the Bolton Independent, the Stowe, and Stowe and Bolton newspapers. I read it. It says it was authored by the school building committee, and it says the total project cost is $239. So that's the number that's being published. Again, the byline on it is the school building committee. So that's the number that's out there.
Yeah, so Mr. Sikansky, I'll go back to our team and make that correction if necessary. That's not the intention, because it was put out there as a discussion and determination of this board. That was presented that evening, actually. I'll go back to that team and the communications team, and if that correction needs to be made, I'll certainly make that correction.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, it was. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say it was stated that there was a request made of the Bolton Town Administrator, and I just invite you, Mr. Sikansky, if you would go back 1 hour, 6 minutes and you would hear that.
Okay,
I think forgive me, Mr. Chair.
go ahead.
Thank you. And because I think Mr. Sikansky, you're referring to the press release. So if that number in the press release was missed on our behalf in terms of reviewing that, we'll definitely make that correction. It should read 241. So I'll look into that tomorrow.
All right, thank you. Yeah, this is a big nut. When we do our budget every year, I'm just looking at the last budget. It's just over 29 million, of which 18 million is going to education, which is Neshoba and Minuteman. So that leaves around 11 million, and we're talking $2 million. Really, this is a big nut. It's a startling proposition for us to have to deal with, and I don't think we can deal with it comprehensively tonight.
Mhm.
So should we, do the other select board members have any objection to revisiting this at a future meeting?
Well, I certainly don't want to make any decision tonight. And considering multiple school committee members have indicated that the issue of funding the school budget is because Bolton has a revenue problem. And with the implication that the schools don't have a spending problem, I have a real problem with wanting to forego $2 million or $2 million plus in permitting fees at this point in time. I think we need to have a much broader discussion about this relative to the whole outlook of the school budget and what the school committee is doing relative to scrutinizing that budget on a year-to-year basis. Then maybe we can have a discussion about the $2 million in terms of the permitting fees.
Stan's got- We've heard from school committee members that Bolton is not doing enough to raise revenue. And we're getting this proposal to forego the building permits. So that's going to weigh in on this.
Yeah.
Discussion.
Yeah. We need to have a much broader discussion about this. Because as a select board member, I'm not happy about this at all.
I think it would be worth also just for educational purposes to perhaps consult with your legal counsel just to have an understanding of MGLC Chapter 40, Section 22F about how they define reasonable fees. Just so you know that, because
That's a fair point to make. That's a fair point to make. Yes.
Yeah, because otherwise it's interpreted as an impermissible tax. And that was my intention, was just to bring this information to the appropriate others.
Thank you
But
very much.
ultimately, it's this body's decision.
Yep.
Ryan?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just one data point, and I don't know who may have this or how difficult it would be to track down, but I thought somebody had suggested that it's normal for a municipality to waive or depart from their normal permitting fee structure in a situation like this. But I think what I'm specifically interested in is, I know you gave Minuteman as an example, but other regional school districts where this has happened. I just don't know like the precedent for it or how other communities have dealt with this question when they faced it.
I know, for example, I worked on Attleboro High School. They waived their fee, but they're a single community. They're not a regional community. Lowell High School waived their fee. Winthrop High School waived their fee. The example I have that I worked on is the Minuteman Regional School District.
Do you have suggestions about how we could find other regional school districts that have dealt with this?
The most recent regional school district that I can think of in the area, not including Minuteman, obviously, is Tohoto. Tohoto is a relatively new project, which consists of the towns of Berlin and Boylston. So I can follow up on that.
Okay.
Mr. Lowe, I believe Acton Boxborough in recent years as well.
Okay,
Okay.
All right, I don't think there's anything more to say about this evening. So, Mary Ann, Superintendent Downing, thank you very much for
Thank you.
attending, and
Okay.
look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Good night.
Yep.
Next is a related issue, which is, and I'll ask Don to give us the background on this, setting a date for a special town meeting to vote on the proposal for the high school.
yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, there's two required steps in the process for the three communities to vote on the approval of the project and incurring the debt. One is a special town meeting, and then the second is a ballot vote, an election, it's technically called. And there's a prescriptive time range within which is prescriptive as far as the MSBA is concerned. Prescriptive time range within which that needs to fall. We've had internal discussions here. I sat with our town clerk, our assistant town clerk, Jenny, and I. It's very clear that what our recommendation is to have the special town meeting on Monday, September 18th, and the ballot election the following Monday on September 25th. Yes, it's been the expressed preference of Superintendent Downing that all three towns have their special town meetings the same day, if possible. Stowe has already voted to have theirs on September 18th. I don't know what Lancaster, if Lancaster has voted, and if they have, I don't know what the vote was, but I do know Stowe's already set theirs. So it's our recommendation, certainly my recommendation, and I believe Pam agrees, that we have our special town meeting on Monday, September 18th, and then the election the following Monday on the 25th. The town meeting would be at 7, as it always is, and the election would run from noon to 8 p.m., which is what standard hours for any of our elections.
Okay.
That's fine with me.
I have one small question, Dawn. Do you know for the election on the 25th, whether there are absentee procedures? Is that for any election that we have?
I believe that's for any election, Brian.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, those dates sound fine to me too.
Obviously, you need to be in person for the town meeting, but I believe absentee ballots, early voting, whatever we're calling it these days, I believe that's an option.
And when do we have to tie down the warrant for that meeting?
I think our standard rules would apply, so I really should have put together a projected timeline, and I haven't done that. I think the last special town meeting we kept the warrant open for about 2 weeks to gather any, to formulate the articles for the warrant. Then I think our standard notification process applies, which I think is, I forget if it's 30 days, 40 days. I'll have to go back and look. We can put a timeline together for the next meeting.
Yeah, I think it's about 30 days or so,
Yeah.
as I recall.
I just want to, so what we would be doing is we would be establishing a town meeting primarily to discuss the high school and funding the high school. but we would still have to have a regular warrant like we usually do.
Yes, and I know what the timeline needs to be for an annual, but it's been so long since we've had a special. I don't remember. I don't remember if it's different or the same.
All right, could I have a motion on the annual town meeting and the election?
If that's for the September 18th and the following, I guess, what,
25th.
25th, I'll make a motion to approve that.
And I'll second that.
Okay, roll call, Stan,
All right,
Brian,
Aye.
and I am also in favor. Okay, thank you. Next is execute a lease renewal agreement with the Conservation Trust for space in the Houghton Building. There was a copy of that in our packet. You know, I understand it's going to be difficult to post that during the meeting tonight because of the technical issues that I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. But does anybody have any questions on that?
no, I'm assuming that's the same lease that we've had for years now with Concom,
Yes, it is.
Conservation Trust.
Okay.
You asked my question, Stan, so
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's like $500 a year or whatever it is.
We just changed the dates.
All
Yep.
right, do I have a motion?
Make a motion, we renew the lease for the Conservation Trust for space in the Houghton Building.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call, Stan,
All right,
Brian,
Aye.
and I'm a yes also. Okay. Moving on, the next agenda item, it's a preliminary, our initial discussion on signboard and banner policies, which I'll turn over to Don.
So currently, the signboard at the Houghton Building, the documented policy is that you must be a Bolton-based 501c3 or a town board to utilize the sign. So no for-profit, no out-of-town based entities, that type of thing. And the approval for such, really, we manage it out of the town hall, Jenny and I. We have the letters here, people come in, make a request. It's very straightforward. We've had no issues with it at all. I think all the time I've been doing this, I had one group not happy that I said no, only because they weren't a Bolton-based 501c3. Yeah, there were people in Bolton who could benefit from it, but it was not run out of Bolton. But that was only one occurrence. Then the banner policy says that any request can be approved by either the town administrator or the select board. Again, as long as I've been here, I've done all the approvals for them. But there are no defined criteria that I have found relative to the railing where we currently hang the banners. I have a concern that I know is shared by the chair at a minimum, that the railing at Pond Park is really not a terribly safe place right now. I mean, it is rotting. I would hate to see people leaning on it, trying to tie something down and something come loose. So it seems to me that the opportunity is to start utilizing the signboard, if you will, at the town common, where currently the banner for the Pride Parade is located, and kind of transfer locations for any and all banners. Then the question becomes one of, do you want to establish any criteria for the use of that space or not? And do you want the town administrator to continue to be the approving authority for anything that goes down there? It gets difficult when you try to nail down exactly what you would like to see there. For instance, I wouldn't advise using the same policy for the Houghton board and for the banners. Because if you're not a Bolton-based 501c3, you would not have the opportunity to put up a banner. And I need go no further than the Pride Parade. That's not a Bolton-based 501c3, but it is certainly a significant event, one that the town supports. And we certainly are eligible to put up a banner down there. So it just gets a little trickier as to how you want to try to define the banners. Because we haven't really had a definition, a defined policy for the banners. It's a defined approval process, but not the content of the banners. And it's been pretty much left at my discretion whether or not something was appropriate.
Well, if you're talking about banners, the current sign for the Pride Parade in where the space is allowed for the sign is not the same space or size as a banner that would go on the railing.
No, the dimensions are different, but I'm focusing on the content, not the dimensions.
Yes. So if are you suggesting that we eliminate the placing of banners on Pond Park, the railing on Pond Park?
That is my suggestion, and that any future banners be placed at the town common.
Well, then at a blush, I would say the same policy that we have for the banners at Pond Park should apply to the town common.
I totally agree. I'm just saying that there is no define, as far as content goes, there's policy for duration. It can only, like a banner can only be up 2 consecutive weeks. We make the exception, for example, May is Senior Appreciation Month. So since the banner is for the month, it remains up for the month. But aside from that, it's a 2-week it's a 2-week duration. So the policy addresses duration, it does not address content. And I think that's probably the way to go.
I have maybe a slightly different perspective, which is, so I think it's actually great that we have opportunities for community organizations to communicate to the public. And my concern about potentially removing Pond Park as an option is that maybe one of the reasons we've been able to pretty smoothly have this policy is that we have ample space. So if there's like high demand for communication, we are able to meet it. And I just don't know how much it would cost to do the safety improvements for that railing, or whether we could, somebody wants to do private fundraising or whatever, but I would hate to lose space, because I have to say, like, traffic stops there in the morning on your way to school. Like, it's just, you learn a lot from the banners on that railing. So I'd be interested in just exploring whether there's a way to preserve that as a space, and then that way there's multiple opportunities and less possibility of I guess scarcity around that.
We could, I mean, obviously we could do anything with money. And it's been a few years since I looked into a cost estimate for that railing to replace the railing. The last one I received, it was about $80,000. And since then, we've kind of had the attitude, or I've had the attitude, I should say, I shouldn't reflect on anybody else, that when we do the work, whatever work needs to be done on the Pond Park culvert, that we could include the railing as part of that project. So we could do it either out of an earmark or a grant or what have you, rather than appropriate the money out of tax revenue. So that's sort of where, conceptually, that's where that stood. So perhaps an option is until we're able to better secure that railing, maybe at least a temporary relocation might be the way to go, because I do get concerned about safety there.
Yeah,
Well, perhaps we need to look at it from a couple of perspectives. One is a short-term change in whatever we need to do and figure out how to get that railing back where it needs to be so we can go back to the way it was. But I think to Don's point, it may not be safe right now, but we need to adjust for the interim.
Well, there's a couple of things there. First off, I have no objection to you, except for the fact that the railing is unsafe. I have no objection to banner being on that location. I do think the select board's got to take a look at that and say, either we need to, you know, I don't know that I'm uncomfortable with that railing just being there in the condition it's in. And I think the board's got to address that somehow.
Yeah.
Going back to Don's other point, though, it seems to me that anybody who's using the town common, which is not limited to Bolton residents, should have the opportunity to be using that sign in front to announce whatever their event is going to be. So for at least the sign that, you know, the area that's on the town common for banners or signs, I think the people who, I think that needs a more expansive definition of who can use it and when. So it's got to be in support of an event that's going to occur on the town common, or some events unique to the town of Bolton. I don't know how something like Senior Appreciation Month fits into those definitions, but that's one of the things we need to look at.
Well, no, I don't necessarily agree with you, Bob. Expansive. It is whoever might be using the town common, one is approved by Park and Rec potentially, but yeah, we just can't have, you know, whoever wants to put a sign up there is allowed to put a sign up there. No, I don't think so. I think we need to have a unified sign policy for that sign, as well as what's in front of the town Houghton building.
Okay.
Since this is on the agenda as a preliminary discussion, I would be happy to put together a draft proposal for banners and pretty much just an updated one for the Houghton building that the board can work from at the next meeting. You know, to your point, Bob, about Senior Appreciation Month, actually Senior Appreciation Month, the request comes from the Friends of Bolton Seniors, which is a Bolton-based 501c3.
Yeah.
So we can tie it back to that. But I understand, I take well all the points that have been made, and I'll be happy to try to put together a couple of draft documents for the next meeting.
Okay, it'd be great. Thank you.
Yep.
Next, we need to approve the payroll bills and warrants for W23-22 and W23-22A. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second,
Roll call. Stan,
Aye.
Brian,
aye.
and I'm a yes also. Do we have minutes for review tonight? Approval?
Is my microphone working? Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you, Jen.
Wow.
I think it's been working the whole meeting, but I wasn't brave enough to test it and interrupt you guys. I'm not so sure that my screen share will work, but I'm going to try that as well. I got a new PC this week, so that's what's causing all of the trouble. think I know what I'm supposed to do now. Seeing my whole folder right now?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, we
Okay,
can.
great. So those are the minutes. We have the minutes of, we'll go sequentially, April 13th with no changes, April 27th with changes. And they're very small, if my memory serves. Oh yeah, I had the vote 3-2, so I changed it to 2-0, or sorry, 3-0, and I changed it to 2-0 throughout the minutes.
Okay.
We had May 1st, but as you gentlemen know, I just attached that document today, so I don't know if you've all had a chance to look at those. We could bypass those if you prefer.
Yeah,
No,
I haven't seen, I have not looked at it.
Okay, then we have May
I
11th.
did, I'm fine, but we can wait.
And they're so short, I could also open it now if you wanted to have a look, but you tell me. But these are the May 11th with small changes as well. And it was just that I didn't have a date.
Sorry, Jenny, what was it? Because there was one other, I think I forgot to email you.
It said May 1st up here when I sent it, rather than May 11th. So I changed it to May 11th.
Yeah, the one I forgot to email you, and I apologize, was I think in the motion where to make me clerk, it says chair instead of
Oh,
clerk.
yes, it does. Thank you.
Not that I'm, I don't want to be a usurper.
Well, congratulations, Brian.
I think that's a Freudian slip on Jenny's part.
Ah, wow, the kingdom's been upset.
All right. And yeah, do you want me to open up the May 1st or save those till the next meeting?
Why don't you open it up? That was the town meeting, right?
Yeah, so it's really just the vote to amend the article.
Yep.
I thought Brian was missing, but nope, Brian wasn't part of us yet.
No, it wasn't.
And now he's the chair.
The chair and the clerk.
Good work, Brian.
Right, if you're
Are we
the
waiting
chair-
For it to open or,
What was the question?
are we waiting for that document to open or no?
Oh, did you not see it?
No,
No, no.
Brian saw it.
Can
Brian's
you
ready
see
to
it?
approve it all.
Can you see it now?
No.
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 All right, let me, it says I am sharing. I'm gonna stop sharing and I'm gonna start again. Did you see any of the minutes?
No,
Nope.
We saw the listing. We saw
We
the
saw the
file.
list, but not the minute, the actual minutes. No.
Oh, interesting. Okay, let's try this.
Well, Zoom has changed since our last meeting, hasn't it?
I'm not sure if it's Zoom. I have it's complicated, but I have a new
We all
monitor
had to
that
enter
makes,
passcodes to get it.
yeah, we never had to enter passcodes before, Jenny, and we all had to tonight.
The
Yeah.
chairman shouldn't have to enter a passcode. I'm sorry.
oh, that might be a Zoom setting, because that might be a local Zoom setting, because there's always been a passcode on meetings.
Yeah, so we're gonna need to get that sorted out for the next meeting.
Mhm. All right. I think you can see them now. Yes?
There you
Yes,
go.
Yeah.
Okay.
but they're very small.
They're cleverly in 6-point type. Okay.
There they are.
No, those are fine with me.
Yes, they're fine.
Yeah, I'll make a motion. We approve the May 1st, 2023 Select Board meeting minutes.
Second.
All those, well,
All those,
good.
yeah, roll call, Stan,
Aye.
and I'm a yes also.
And I abstain.
And what about motion on the other minutes that were listed?
Sure.
Do you need those dates again? It was April 13th, April 27th, and May 11th.
As Jenny had said, I make a motion, we approve those.
Okay, I'll second that and roll call, Stan.
Aye,
I'm in favor also. Brian,
I'll abstain for all except May 11th, and I'll vote yes on May 11th.
does that conclude our business for this evening?
You want to do a roll call on that, or would you like me to?
Oh, you go right ahead. Is there a
Okay.
motion to adjourn?
Oh, we still need to do roll call. So roll
the minutes.
call for the minutes. Boyle?
Yeah.
Sikansky
Aye.
and Waisaki.
aye.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Roll call, Stan,
Aye.
Brian,
aye.
I'm a yes also. Well, thank you very much.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
Memorial Day
Thank-
weekend,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Good night,
Time for
everybody.
the record is 8:39. Good night, everybody.
Okay, good night.
Good night.